With us right now, Dr. Kizzy Parks. Dr. Parks, Kizzy, Kizzy, you're the president of K Parks Consulting. You're found on the web at KPC Inc. And you're also the president of GovCon Winners on the web at govconwinners.com. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Josh. It's a pleasure.
So, Kizzy, you have done some great work with the federal government, and you have done a lot of government contracts. I know that there's a lot of folks that are listening that, they've heard of others that do great government contracts, and they're like, am I missing out on something? Kizzy, are we missing out on something?
Yes, you definitely are, because the federal government spends over $500 billion a year, and they buy everything. Everything you can think of: pancakes, beans, cybersecurity, training, books, staffing. They buy it all.
Wow. Wow. How'd you get into this world?
So I was a graduate student at Florida Institute of Technology in Melbourne, Florida. Mm-hmm. And I ended up getting a graduate research fellowship at now Patrick Space Force. And while I was there, I had already several years of experience as a solopreneur. Uh-huh. And right before I was about to earn my PhD, the director of research, he said, heard you're graduating soon. We would love to keep you as a contractor. And I noticed how the other contractors were treated and how that kind of worked. And I said, yeah, I'll do this, but I'm looking to take this to the next level and run with it as a business owner, not just somebody who's physically there, but is a 1099. And that's what I did.
Wow. Okay. So what was your first, what was your first contract that you won, or explain that story there, or how that evolved or what that became?
So at that time, right before I graduated, I received a contract that was almost 6 figures.
Wow.
Yeah, I know, it's nuts, right?
And what were you doing for 6 figures? What services were you providing?
Data analytics, assistance with thought leadership, research, any and everything that they wanted, I would provide because of what that particular agency needed. And so that contract, I was a subcontractor to a prime. And then from there, I ended up, just because people would see me at government events, I ended up picking up speaking engagements. So I spoke for Women's History Month at Fort Belvoir. I ended up speaking for the Army Reserve for a conference that they had. And then I ended up, they would add more work. And they would say, oh, well, we would like to add this training effort to your subcontract. And then I would pay someone to do the contract and take my cut. So it started there. And then I also collaborated with a diversity firm, because a lot of the early work was in diversity. And they were out of Central Florida, and they opened the door to the private sector, because I remember I came out of graduate school. I didn't have connections to the private sector. I didn't serve in the military. I didn't have a background in extensive sales and marketing. So that's really how I started to grow, was through the government work as well as the relationship on the private sector side.
Okay, so Kizzy, one thing that I want to talk about is helping people understand certain qualifications that they can receive so that they can tap into the opportunity for certain set-asides, which I know in the world of government contracting. So historically, I've been a veteran-owned small business, a VOSB by the CVE. I'm just throwing out acronyms, right? You can tell we're getting into government world. And then as well, applying for working with the VA, which is going on forever and ever and ever and ever, for service disabled, veteran-owned small business. Now, you qualify 8A, woman-owned, minority-owned business. Can you kind of explain the opportunity there if for someone who meets any of these designations?
Right. The opportunity is really limitless. So for instance, with the 8A program for Alaskan Native tribes, they can have well over 20 million sole source to them. For non-Alaskan tribal firms like mine, we can have 4 million set aside. As far as competitive, the sky, I think, is the limit. If an agency wants to compete a $100 million effort under the 8A program, that's something that they can decide to do. And so what tends to happen is this is one of the only kind of areas where you can go from 0 billable people to like 10, 20, 100 overnight through one of these programs. Because normally companies, they grow, oh my gosh, we're a startup, or we need more people because of the holiday season, but we're talking billable every month. You're receiving accounts receivable from the federal government for these people that you have on your team. So these programs can really help you grow quickly. They can help you expand into other areas, which I really emphasize as the key to government contracting. Is you may start, like I started in diversity and inclusion. Now we inspect all vape shops in America. We provide training for food inspectors. We staff exercise physiologists. I've sold Oculus headsets. It's really important to then diversify.
Yeah.
So then you're keeping your business very strong. So these programs really help. But the woman-owned, it really helps narrow the competition. Same thing with veteran-owned, whether it's BOSB or service disabled, it just really helps narrow you down, as well as the contract vehicles. The federal government has a ton of contract vehicles, and that further, then you're only competing with certain people, and it makes life much easier for you, which is what we all want, don't we?
Amazing, amazing. So, let me maybe explain my situation. You can, I love this. I get free advice. One thing that we specialize in is that, oftentimes I think we think of the federal government as always just buying, right? And I wonder if this is the case, if there would be a need where the federal government or the government, and maybe it's municipality, maybe it's state level, it's some ancillary. Well, then you have your contractors as well that you can also work with. What we specialize in is the sales process. And so I am able to, let's say that there's an entity that wants to get those sales meetings. I can make those sales meetings happen. I'm really, really effective at making those connections happen. So that's our specialty. And then we also do a lot of kind of online authority work as well. So say, for example, someone, say the executive level or, leadership or whatever, the C-suite, they want work with their online authority. So we're also really, really good at building their online authority. So those are kind of the two things, helping make sales meetings happen. And then as well, some of that online digital authority stuff. Do you think there might be an opportunity out there for us?
I would say definitely. I mean, definitely in the sense of you could, one, help other firms with the sales and business development side. Because what I find in the government is you'll have firms that are just very like kind of stoic, like we've won these awards. This is what we do. We're so great. And it's like, okay, you're not selling to a robot. Like there's tons of us that offer these things. So you can help work with firms so that they really understand how to maximize the meetings.
Interesting.
How to really communicate who they are and what they do and their story, and a little bit around their marketing, because they really don't. And then it just makes it really terrible.
Yeah. Well, this is interesting. We'll have to talk about this off air, but so, with our designation, if I were to just partner as a sub and say, my job is to help you land more meetings or whatever. So interesting. Okay. We'll talk off air. Yeah. I'm kind of playing out some possible scenarios in my head here. We'll see if this might be worth pursuing. So Kizzy, tell me about now, and again, I know this is, you recently launched this in January, but GovCon winners.
Yes. So, I especially during COVID, I became aware of all of these people and companies who provide training to help you win government contracts. And it's really funny because I had no idea that this was even out there. And I started to come across them or hear them in clubhouse rooms. And it really made me so sad and terrified, because often a lot of their advice, I mean, maybe they had good intent or they wanted money, I don't know, but their advice, I could tell, didn't come from a place of a person who really had experience in government contracting. And we've been awarded over $50 million in government contracts. So and I thought like, okay, I have to do something. My background's teaching and I care so much. And it was really disheartening, because then people would come to me like, I took so-and-so's class and they told me I should do this. And I'm like, okay, like, no, and that's not going to work. And you're not going to be able to leave your 9 to 5. And I was like, whoa, this is out of control. So GovCon Winners is to help people learn how to find, bid, and win profitable government contracts, period. That's what it's about. It's to help with mindset. It's to help understand marketing and branding. It's help to understand where you should really look, what you should, what these RFPs are telling you, how to really understand what's out there, as well as how to really engage with the stakeholder and to clearly and just definitively understand their mindset. Because again, often people may think, well, I'm really successful in the commercial side, so I'll just hop in the government lane, or I work for the federal government, so I know that they'll spend $20,000 on this, or I was in the military, or I'm retiring soon, so I know they're going to buy this. And I get it. Like, you see it, you know you can do it, and you have that fire in you, but it's not that simple. If it were that simple, then everyone would be selling to the federal government and talking about it on Twitter. But instead, it's a very competitive space. And there's this mindset and techniques that go into it. And most importantly, I teach what I do. We still are actively bidding. We still have contracts. I have 3 government firms. I have KPC and I have 2 joint ventures. So what I'm sharing, what I do share, it is what works. And then we also provide, for those who may be at a different place, we provide more personalized monthly business development services to help review proposals, help identify opportunities, redo capabilities, really help take them to the next level, as well as maximize contracts, because that's something that many people in the government contracting space overlook. Maximizing the contract you have. It's much easier to get second work. So if somebody says, hey, I'm going to give you a contract for 2 people to provide administrative services, well, why can't you add a third? But you have to ask, or find out what their pain points are, because it's going to be easier for them to say, wow, that's a really good idea. Why don't we just add another person to your contract, opposed to now you got to start all over again, find another client. It takes so much for that.
How do we, so that was my next question, is number one, finding opportunities, but it sounds like, just finding companies to partner with as a sub. It sounds like, okay, I'm in. Sign me up, Kizzy. How do I get going?
Well, just reach out to me on LinkedIn is the best route right now. Is you reach out to me on LinkedIn. It's Kizzy Parks. It's like Kizzy light bulb Parks or something. Please reach out to me. Mention that you heard me on the podcast. I'll definitely give you a discount. Mention all that is the best way. And would gladly, because I do this often, is help with the partnering. Because what will also happen is this. You'll have a firm where they win the work, but maybe they can't staff the data analyst. And so they're looking for someone else to fill it, because when you think about it, it's expensive to recruit. And they don't want to deal with that. They want to be able to pay you a set amount, take their cut, and then you have to deal with doing the work and hiring Tom, onboarding Tom, and making sure Tom does amazing things. So that's a whole nother route. And there are people out there where that's all they do, is all they want to do and be is a subcontractor. They're cool with that. And they make $1 million plus just doing that a year.
Okay. Kizzy, I'm excited.
Me too. I mean, I'm telling you, I can't stress enough the possibilities are endless. It's just having that information, because so many people, I was just talking to a gentleman earlier and he was talking about, oh, I want to sell medical supplies, and that's great. But medical supplies will only take you so far unless you have the capability to provide some massive amount of medical supply agency that doesn't have supplies. But so you have to really expand that entrepreneurial mindset.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, fantastic. All right, Kizzy Parks, again, your website is kpcinc.com. Explain a little bit more about, because obviously we were talking a lot about just, the excitement over working, with the government. And again, that's through govconwinners.com. But as a consultancy, is there, I don't know if you provide services to non-government entities, but, if someone who is a decision maker there, or, company that might be listening, how do you serve other businesses?
We do. We definitely do. We actually just wrapped up a project with a multiple billion-dollar firm that is located in Europe. And so typically it's around diversity and inclusion. It could be training. Like, for instance, we trained Walmart. We provided training to them. Provided training to a record label, a major record label.
Wow.
We provided diversity and inclusion services to TIAA-CREF, to Medtronic, to different universities. So typically it's usually diversity and inclusion or training services. If there's something else on the private side that you're interested in, by all means. I mean, if we're not a good fit, I could potentially refer you to somebody who I think is a better fit, but we're definitely open. It's just that we've just really focused in on the federal government, but like I said, I'm very open. Like, the bottom line is we're here to make lives easier and to really help you with whatever your mission or goals are.
Yeah. Well, you're ranked number 965 on the Inc. 5000 fastest growing companies. Congratulations on that. You have a lot of designations, a lot of, again, going through your website and seeing our clients: Department of the Air Force, Department of the Army, Department of the Navy, Department of Defense, Air National Guard, USDA. It's on and on and on and on. Very, very exciting. Kizzy Parks, Dr. Kizzy Parks, thank you so much for joining us. This is a lot of fun. Again, your website, KPC Inc., and new website, govconwinners.com. Thank you so much, Kizzy, for joining us.
Well, thank you so much, Josh, for having me. Please contact me. Do not be a stranger. Just DM me on LinkedIn, and then I'll be able to connect with you and learn however I could be of help, or just provide any kind of insight or answer any questions that you have.
Excellent.